Hi, it's Eric and welcome to the Correspondence Corner this week. Before we get started with our questions, and we had some great questions that came in this week, I want to mention that there are two really neat events that I attended back in the district this week. The first was the send-off of the military academy appointees that I have the honor of participating in to the Air Force Academy, West Point, and the Naval Academy. There's no doubt there are some real strong young leaders, men and women, that we will be hearing about in the future going into those different academies. Then I also went down to the state capitol in St. Paul and participated in the Minnesota Military Family Tribute. This is very unique, and Minnesota is the first state in the country that is going to have a special tribute for military families. Look for that opening up next June. It's one other area where Minnesota does so much for our veterans and we stand out. Now it's time for our questions. The first actually comes from Robert in Minnetrista. He emailed in. He says, "Dear Congressman Paulsen, every few years the Veteran Administration, which is health care for veterans, is in the news. The problem is always the same. The solution is always the same. Someone gets fired, someone gets hired, new untested, unproven programs are put into action costing millions of dollars, but from the veteran's position, nothing changes. What's being done to fix this? Sincerely, Robert." Robert, you're absolutely right. Typical Washington is just thinking you're going to remove the one person in charge of the VA and the problem's going to go away. The truth is this problem has been systemic. And we actually we've taken action in the House recently on a couple of fronts. Number one, we've given the ability at the VA to get rid of any managers that were involved in making sure that our veterans are not able to attain the appropriate health care and they've been put in these waiting lists for long periods of time. Secondly, we're also making sure there's an independent review that's going to be done from an outside source to say what are the best practices, what should we be doing right to make sure our veterans are getting the services not only before and during their deployment, but after their deployment. And then finally, I have provisions that I've introduced in this bill form now, hopefully will become law, to allow veterans to put more money in their own health care savings accounts, giving them more flexibility, more choices to take care of their own health care. That's prohibited right now under current law. That just doesn't make sense. Our second question comes in from Christy in Eden Prairie. And I've heard it from a lot of folks actually that have taken the time to write in and call in on this issue. It's the practice of horse soaring. She says, "Dear Eric, I'm a constituent and I urge you to co-sponsor the Prevent All Soaring Tactics Act. It's the PAST Act. The legislation will require more meaningful enforcement by the USDA to end the cruel and abusive practice of soaring Tennessee walking horses and related breeds. Thank you if you're already a co-sponsor. Please do all you can to get this bill enacted quickly. Thanks, Christy." Well, first of all, thank you, Christy, and to all the others Minnesotans that took the time to call in about this issue. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the issue, horse soaring is actually the practice of inhumane treatment of horses at a very young age, only so that they perform better as show horses when they become adults. This practice is inhumane. It shouldn't be tolerated. It shouldn't be allowed. I am a co-sponsor of this legislation, and hopefully we'll see it enacted into law with bipartisan support. Thanks for taking the time to join us on the Correspondence Corner this week. Don't hesitate to share your thoughts, your ideas, and your questions. You can reach out to me on the website at paulsen.house.gov or, of course, on Twitter and Facebook. Have a great weekend and a great week.